Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Nearly Enlightened podcast, a podcast for people who are looking to dive deeper into the body, mind, and spirit connection. This is really a podcast for people who are going through the healing journey and want to be part of a community of like-minded people and people kind of going through and experiencing similar things. I think that when it all boils down to it, we're all more alike than we are different. And I know that's an unpopular opinion because everyone wants to think that their healing journey is special, unique, whatever, whatever. And really, we're all just going through pretty much the same shit. With that being said, today's episode is just me. Today is a solo podcast. So I appreciate you being here. I just wanted to take a moment to thank each and every one of you listening, watching on YouTube, sharing, liking, subscribing. Like, I see all of it. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart because in the recent weeks, I've gotten a lot of pushback. I've gotten a lot of shit from people who don't agree or think that I've absolutely lost my mind. So if you are engaging with my social media, if you're listening to this podcast, if you're watching, if you're sharing, I see everything. I see all of it. And I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart because it's really what's kept me going in the last couple of weeks. So I'll be completely transparent with you. In the last couple of weeks, it's been pretty turbulent for me. And this is really a new layer of healing for me. So as I continue to what I call come out of the spiritual closet, it has made people around me uncomfortable. And it's really disappointing because basically what they're telling me is that this version of myself that I'm showing up as and really being open and honest in a new way is not enough, or it's too much, actually. So that has been some of the common thread feedback that I've gotten, even from really cherished loved ones. And I think what's so fascinating about the healing community sometimes is that we tell people that they should be unapologetically themselves. But when people start showing up unapologetically as their self, we give them shit for it. And that's currently what I'm experiencing. So being open and transparent without using names, some things that I've been going through is just taking a look at how I show up and wondering if I should keep doing it. There's been a lot of doubt that's been cast in my mind. I've just been looking at this in a whole new way. And like I said, like we're always going deeper, we're always finding new layers of healing. And this currently is my newest layer of healing. You know, I thought that the people in my circle as a 31-year-old was like everyone became family, and I thought that these people were going to be in my life for life. And what I'm finding out is maybe some people in my circle shouldn't be there, or I need to just take a look at our relationship and just start to redefine it or look at it in a different way. Yeah, so not to start the podcast off on a super heavy note, but I just want you to know that when I'm speaking about these things, I am still actively working on all of my own shit too. Like, you're never perfect, you're never enlightened. And that's how Nearly Enlightened was born, is like we should always try our best to show up as our best, but sometimes we'll fall short, and sometimes we'll just discover these new layers. It's like, as long as we're on this physical plane, I think I talked about this in the podcast, last week's podcast with Danica, is like we're always finding new layers to show up better and to show up more authentically as ourselves and to continue to do this healing work. Like I think that being in this physical flesh sack of a body, like as long as we're on this plane, as long as our soul is trapped in these earthly human temples, that we will continuously be doing the work. Otherwise, we would be like the Dalai Lama, right? And even he is still actively doing work, you know, after he pushed the hokey pokey. I just, yeah, I think he has some healing to do too. Anyways, so I don't want that to be a deterrent that like we're always going to be doing this hard work. It does get easier and there are ebbs and flows of it. And currently, this is my ebb. I lost a friend that is was really close to me. I thought of this person as a family member, as a brother, and I didn't even know that we were going. My hair is like really crazy. Don't mind me today. I guess you can't see it if you're listening on Apple or Spotify, but if you're watching on YouTube, you can. Anyways, so I lost this person that's really near and dear to my heart, and I it's kind of weaved in with cancel culture. And I just think as a society, it's such a strange place that we're in that people who seemingly love each other cannot have differences of opinions without people taking it personally, which is like wild to me. And while I agree that we should never have people around us that like actively hurt us or make us uncomfortable or that they just bring a certain energy that's truly draining to our lives, like sometimes, you know, there's that silly cliche quote that's like, if you friends are either for a reason or season or something like that. So I don't believe that everyone should be in our lives forever. But like I said, I was just in a place where I feel like I've cultivated this tribe, this circle that was just my people. And maybe this is just God showing me that these this person, these people are just not for me. Like they were a part of my healing journey for a moment. And now what they needed to show me is done. So, you know, we're moving forward. But nonetheless, it's still really traumatic to lose a friend. You go through a whole grief process. It's like, you know, we can have friend breakups, and those are just as hard as any other breakup. And that's kind of what I'm going through now. So I'm like in the grief of it all and just trying to analyze it. And yeah, so I appreciate you for letting me be candid about that and just know that like we all go through similar things. You know, I know so many different people who are going through the same thing currently, and it's really hard. And I want to acknowledge that if you're doing this work, like good job, because it's not easy and people will fall away. And that can be a deterrent to not, but staying stuck and in a place where you're unappreciated is like never good. And God, you know, energy never dies. So, you know, we have to make space for things. And I'm hoping, and I know, I trust in my heart that this is just going to bring in more authentic, real, genuine friendships for me. But it's okay to feel sad. And that's really what I want to highlight here today is like, I don't agree with the positive vibes only like culture that light workers or healers tend to bring. It's like shitty things happen and you can't positive vibes your way out of it. Like sometimes we just need to like let that energy move through us, and sometimes that energy moves through as sadness, as tears, as grief, as anger, as frustration, and we just have to roll with it. And what I noticed through the healing journey is something like this years ago would have pulled me to a place where I probably would have like binged drink about it. I probably would have felt shitty a lot longer than I have. And pushed those feelings away and really sat in with the anger of it all. And what I notice now is the day that it happened, my partner and I, because Scott was like, let's go for a ride, like get your mind off of it. And we went for a ride. And like through the ride, I was just like kind of crying. And, as all men want to do, he just wanted to like fix the problem. And I love him for that. And I appreciate that so much. But sometimes like we just have to cry it out. And that's what I told him. I was like, there's nothing that you can do to fix this. Like I just have to feel sad right now. And feeling sad is okay. It's like part of the healing journey, and things aren't always going to be rainbows, sunshines, and unicorn farts. Like sometimes things are going to suck, and we're going to be confronted with things that we might not want to look at. And I do feel really sad about losing this person, but looking back on the situation, he unfriended me, he defriended me, blocked me on social media for being myself. And I think that that's really sad and really telling more about him than it does about me. And I wish that person nothing but healing and health and happiness going forward. And I hope that we can really have a conversation someday about the reality of how the relationship got broken down. When I confronted this person and was like, yo, what's going on? He couldn't really give me a response or something that I did personally. And I think that having those hard conversations is part of being in relationship with people, not just romantic relationships, but friendships, family relationships. Like sometimes we have to have these hard conversations. And just because two people disagree doesn't mean that we should be offended by their opinion, or we should like take it as a personal attack, because it's not. And we need to allow people the opportunity to feel comfortable to have a difference of opinions, especially if those differences goes against the mainstream narrative, which I feel like if there are people who have very strong opinions that differ from the mainstream narrative, and we automatically label them as bad. And not to bring up pop culture, but I think Kanye West um, is a huge example of this, right? We put him up on a pedestal and we said, oh, he's the greatest artist of all time. He's a genius of our time, this, that, and the other thing. But when he started to talk about things that go against the mainstream narrative, the first thing we did was label him as mentally ill. And I think that's hugely telling of where we are as a society. And it's honestly really sad. I'm like in grief about this too, is that this person who I thought was like a family member to me saw my personal opinions as a personal attack against him and his opinions. I think that we can have differences of opinions and still agree, love, and respect one another. I think that's where personal growth happens. And I think that's where growth of a society happens. Right now, we are in a renaissance of our time. And that is going to bring up a lot of shit for a lot of people, because we're going to have all of these new ways of thinking. But if we don't start to push outside of the box, push outside of the mainstream narrative, we're going to see no progression. We're going to see no healing as a collective, and we're going to be stuck in this shitty matrix that humans do not belong in. I think that as soon as we start to have these uncomfortable conversations about differing opinions and we really hear one another out, we can find more common ground. So just because somebody has a personal opinion that's different than yours, it doesn't mean that that's a personal attack on your values, on your personal opinions, just because you disagree. And I think this is where we see a danger in cancel culture. I was canceled by my friend for having a view that's different than the mainstream narrative. And to me, that's super sad. Like if I did something that was a personal attack on him, or I was shitty to him, talked shit behind his back or whatever, if I did something like that, I would want to know about it, confront me about it, allow me the opportunity to do better. But the crazy thing is, it wasn't even about that. It was literally about my personal opinions and views. So that's why I'm like extra thankful if you're here, you're still following me on Instagram, because I have had a mass unfollowing throughout the last 2 years. So if you're still with me, like I am super grateful for your presence. You literally have no idea. Like some of you who have sent encouraging messages to me and reached out personally, like you have no idea how much that means to me. And I think that goes to show, like, if you admire somebody, if you love what they're doing, like tell that person, because the more you start to become yourself and step out of this box, this spiritual closet, the more alienating it can feel. So like let people know, whether, not, I would have wanted to have a conversation with this person instead of like being blocked and canceled. And I think that that's just what I'm getting at here is like, let's have these tough conversations with love. I even had a situation happen to me last week where someone didn't agree with the guest that I had on because of a personal experience that they had with Danica. And that was like really upsetting too. And I'm just going through all of these growing pains of starting to step out of the closet and start to share my truth. So it's just been like a wild ride. And I just don't agree with cancel culture. I think it's doing us a huge disservice. I think that we're like devolving as a society because of it. And I just want to encourage people to like not get mad, not get personal with people, but to speak your truth in a diplomatic way that the other person can receive. And maybe they still won't, even if, but I think that instead of just automatically canceling people, like we should just have conversations, because we've all done shit that's a cancelable effect, a cancelable, I can't speak, and I don't know if I'm trying to make up a word, but um, we've all done something that's a cancelable offense. That's what I'm trying to say. So just like let's meet people with compassion and kindness, because we're all going through something. We're all healing from something. We're all trying to do better. I don't know anyone who is trying to stay the same or like do worse. So like let's just hold each other with compassion and grace, because at the end of the day, our triggers are about us. So if you are triggered by something someone says, does, or just like their being as a whole, that's a mirror for you to look deeper within yourself. And I think that's all I have to say today. This was like hot takes and unpopular opinions. So if you're still with me, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I see you. I'm here with you. I'm going to keep showing up unapologetically as myself. And that's it. So if you don't agree, you can just silently not listen and unfollow. You don't have to, make a big thing about it, because your trigger of me or your trigger of someone else, or if you trigger someone else, it's about that person or it's about you. And it's your responsibility to do something about it. So let's just take radical responsibility for all of our shit and let's make this world a better place. I hope you have a wonderful week. Happy healing. And I'll see you back, I think, next week with a new guest. We got 3 guests lined up. I'm super excited about it. And we're going to talk about more stuff. We're going to talk about energy healing. We're going to talk more about yoga and sustainable living. and we're going to talk about nutrition. So I'm super excited about the guests that we have lined up. If you want to be on the podcast, please reach out to me. I have a little thing that you can fill out, and I'd love to have you. I I'm open to guests. I'm not always going to have people on that I like 100% agree with, because like I said, I think that it's important to have these conversations of differing opinions, because I think that's how we progress as a society. And I think that's how we're going to usher in a new way of thinking, being, and living that really benefits everyone as a whole. I think that we're moving to a great space. So, with that said, please like, subscribe, share. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple, please give us 5 stars. That will just make a world of a difference. And yeah, reach out in my DMs. I'm happy to have conversations. I love having conversations. I'm a Gemini. I change my mind all the time when I get new information, and that's how we evolve. That's how we're going to make this world a better place. So thank you for listening, and I'll see you next week.